Things have just been chugging along at a really good pace. Trying to think of how much I talked about this already in previous videos, but I'll just lay it all out here. In November, I had some weird problem happen with my left leg where my knee started hurting and then there was bruising all up and down the back of the leg. I went to the ER about halfway through the month and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They said, if it gets worse, please come back. So after another week and a half, I was back because it did get worse. What they discovered after running some testing was that there was something called a Baker's cyst in the knee. They don't know why it was there. But I couldn't hardly use my leg. I was in a wheelchair because it hurt. I couldn't put my foot down at all without a whole lot of pain. I couldn't even straighten the leg. So anyway, after I was in the hospital for about a week, they did a muscle biopsy on that leg, and we're waiting on the results. Hopefully, I mean, we have the results, but we have to talk to the doctor about it. They said that it was vasculitis, but they don't know the cause. It could be hematology, it could be rheumatology. We have no idea. So we're still waiting on that. But I've been healing by leaps and bounds. It's been pretty amazing this month. I kept cracking up because I'm like, a month ago I couldn't do this, or a month ago I couldn't do that. So as I said, I was in a wheelchair and then I gradually switched to crutches. And then I ended up going to table tennis. And while I still couldn't put my foot down at that point, but I played table tennis from the wheelchair, and that was a lot of fun. So the next few times I went, I would sit either in my wheelchair or they have like roller chairs there. So I would play from that. And whoever played against me would also play in a chair. So we had a really good time. But anyway, my husband, we have a really huge basement. We got a couple ping pong tables in the basement. So my husband set up a ping pong robot with one of the tables, and I started practicing down there, started walking more. It's so wonderful. I'm running up and down the stairs now. That's part of my exercise because I'm trying to rebuild the strength in in both legs really, but in particular in that leg and knee, because they're very, very weak from having to sit for like a month and a half. So anyway, this whole time though, I've just been so thankful to God. I'm amazed at how the healing has progressed because honestly, I thought I was going to be permanently either stuck in the wheelchair. I hate to say stuck because it's not, when I say stuck, that makes it sound so negative. That would have been fine. We would have figured out how to work things out. But that's where I thought I would be. I thought I'd be in a wheelchair. I also thought, like, as I, was able to start using the crutches, I'm like, well, maybe I won't be in a wheelchair. Maybe I'll have to use the crutches though, because again, I still couldn't put my foot down. But I kept stretching, kept working the leg, et cetera, et cetera. And I can walk like normal. It's like everyone sees me walking. They're like, you wouldn't have even known that you had a problem. So anyway, that's been very exciting. I did make some resolutions. Like one was I wanted to work on a book that I had an idea for earlier last year, and I started taking notes. It would be called Godly Eating because it's like this is the path that God put me on, and I want to keep going with that. Some other resolutions that I made though was like I wanted to stop thinking about foods that I can't have anymore. And I don't even mean like bad foods. I mean foods that they would be on this diet if they didn't cause me other problems. So, I mean, like last year, I was like, I wish I could have vegetables. And with the problems I kept having with my appetite, it's like early in the year, the problems were caused by me starting perimenopause and stuff. And then later, it was caused by the blood pressure medicine that I was on. So my appetite was just terrible. And I kept wanting other foods. And I had to keep reminding myself, it's like, no, here's the reasons why you don't eat those foods anymore. And thankfully I have this all written down so I can remember it. But there was one last thing that that I was hanging on to. And that was the hope that I could eventually have nuts again, nuts and seeds. And while I did have some macadamia nuts in December, they didn't give me any stomach problems. That's usually the first, hurdle to overcome. If it's going to be okay for me, it's got to get past my stomach. But what happened now is that I've got the eczema has come back on my arms, and I've got little tiny patches of psoriasis. So no, can't have macadamia nuts. So the other resolutions are stop looking back and keep the door closed on the foods that you know you can't have. So anyway, did you guys make any resolutions, and how are you doing holding on to them? That's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.